We're having a GRN conversation here at Chattanooga for the PCA General Assembly. I'm delighted to be sitting with Jason Helopoulos. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well.
Jason, I think of you as a young guy. You're probably not that young anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be a young minister.
I like to think of myself as young too.
But we have a lot of young people that are being reached by the gospel, often on college campuses. They become excited about Christ and they want to serve Him, and they find themselves as Ordinands in some process on the way there. And yet, many of them are fairly new in the faith. Many of them were not raised in Christian homes. I wasn't either, but many of them have come from broken families. Maybe they've not had a solid church experience. What are some of the dangers that poses for them? We'll talk in a minute about how we need to respond, but what's the concern on their point?
Yeah, I think a lot of young men come to faith. I was one of these young men that came to faith in college and wanted to learn the scriptures. And I said, how do you learn the scriptures? And people told me, well, you go to seminary. I mean, that's what you do if you're a godly Christian man in college. And I think a lot of men especially run off to seminary to seek the office of a pastor because they think that's just the next step.
And you think they should not?
I think it needs to be tested. So I think our BCO is incredibly helpful in this way, where it talks about having that inward sense of call. A lot of these young men have that. But there are the other two factors as well, aren't there? There's that outward sense, that manifest approbation of God's people that the BCO talks about, that there are other people that have sat under this young man's teaching or his ministry, or he has discipled them, and they say, I've benefited from your gifts. I've actually benefited. And they encourage this man. And then the third, which is crucial, and I think a lot of times we see it as a rubber stamp, is a church court approving this and saying, we not only agree that he has this inward sense, we not only agree with people that have served under his ministries. It's not just his mom that's saying you have the gifts, but now we're coming alongside and saying we agree that this man has a call upon his life. And it's incredibly important as we think about holiness in the pastorate, as we think about being a pastor in the church and an under-shepherd in this mantle that you're taking upon yourself in this responsibility. This is key in the process.
It's not for self-actualization in a spiritual sense. I think that this phenomenon, because these are zealous young men, there's some women seeking non-vocational work too, but it puts a burden on us to really get to know them and to mentor them. I am the product of pretty intense mentoring, and what a difference it makes for us to get to know them. We have a lot of young men come into our our presbytery has a seminary and another one nearby. Right. So we have a lot of guys under care. I tend not to know them well unless they attend my church. What can we do as a presbytery and as older ministers who have a lot of work to do? We're busy people, but what can we do to increase our level of contact? They get to know us personally. We know how to encourage them, giving them chances to see role modeling. What can we do better on our side of it?
Well, I think, as you said, that each pastor of his local church, I think, needs to take those men under his care that are seeking to be ordained into the office. And I want to do three things with those young men in particular. So I think gospel ministry is difficult. There's no doubt about that. There are a lot of different trials with it. But it's also very easy in some ways. It's very simple. It's love God, love His people, and love the Word. And you connect those three things. And so when I'm with these young guys, I want to keep pointing them to Christ and say, you have to love God. I mean, you have to truly seek the Lord. And not where you're preparing lessons to minister to other people, but where you are in the Scriptures to be fed, and you are seeking the Lord to be conformed to the image of Christ. You got to truly love God's people. Like where Paul talks about pouring out his life as a drink offering, right?
I taught through the life of David, and I always say David's story ends in 1 Kings.
Yeah.
My story ends in the next generation.
That's right.
And we need that attitude. Well, this is a GRN conversation. I do want to encourage any young or not so young people seeking ordination, make sure you get grounded in a faithful, solid church based on the ordinary means of grace. There's nothing like an experience in a healthy gospel church to be launched into ministry. We hope you're blessed. This has been a GRN conversation.